to be able to share what's been cooking. It's been too long, frankly, since we had an in-depth town hall. Just as a quick reminder, if you have questions of any sort related specifically to Project Sentience, the overall status of Lizard Labs, what the heck is a game publisher and why does it matter for us? Questions about Lizcoin, about Ethlizards, about our portfolio activities on the portfolio subdev side, please drop them in the chat of this stage. If you throw something into like the general underground lounge, there's a chance we may be able to get to it. I know some of our audience members are pretty active in going out and pulling that content over. But if you definitely want to make sure we see it, showing up in the comments is going to be the best way to do that. We had I think 5 or 6 questions that already got dropped before we started, so I will do my best to make sure we cover those as well. And Lou, if you can just maybe prompt me along the way if there's something specific that you see related to what I'm talking about, we can either cover it at the moment or come back to it afterwards. So that said, I want to begin by setting the stage for all of you. We're going to take a walk back through memory lane. And why are we here in the first place in Web3 gaming? For roughly 5 years now, the sector has grown with the promise of creating a better structure for gamers, that having Web3 elements, decentralization, tokens, NFTs, DAOs, is going to improve the way that gamers interact with game studios. It's going to improve the products. It's going to return value back to gamers. And until today, that promise has not materialized, just spoken very frankly. We have had a front row seat to the best and also the worst in the industry. And right now, there is I think, no reasonable person who would argue that Web3 gaming is succeeding in its overarching mission. So, where does that leave us as a project, and what is our approach to address that? In order to really understand like what needs to take place, we have to go back and review where have we gone wrong as an industry and what is that going to mean moving forward. Fundamentally, we've seen the financialization aspects of Web3, that instead of adding value to where you play a game and you get to own the assets that you had, you get to be able to you have a decentralized approach to governance and to providing feedback to studios. The games have not been good, and we've seen basically just value extraction through farming. We've seen a focus on wild speculation. And look, we started as ETH I'm as degen as anybody here, probably more so than most. There's no problem with speculating on values of tokens and assets. However, we're not going to grow the industry until the games are actually good enough that players are willing to play them, and meaningful numbers of players, because the pie is too small. Anyone that's seen the DAU numbers for the Web3 gaming space knows this is true. We're fighting over literally 0.00001% of the gaming population globally right now. That's not going to cut it. We're not going to be able to compete against mainstream audiences that are participating in Web2 gaming if we don't change the way that's working. And so, under this backdrop, we've gone through as a studio the past roughly 3 years. We've invested in projects, some of whom have done okay in terms of token price and valuation. Very few of which have actually seen meaningful users, even in the 10K plus range. Um, we've seen even fewer that have generated any meaningful revenue from their games. And so, looking at the situation, we've done pretty deep dives over the past 6 months as to why that's the case. And A, is there a chance for that to change? And B, if not, what do we need to do to be part of the solution rather than just hoping that things are going to be different? So, looking back at our initial vision in 2023 and 2024, it was to build products and platforms on top of the top studios in Web3 gaming to bring their users into Lizard Labs ecosystem and share those users around with other game studios. That vision is still a good vision. The problem is there are no gamers that are here effectively from other titles that are in Web3 today. And so we recognized this risk at the beginning of 2024. As part of that, we began scaling up the green room. So those that haven't maybe followed in so much detail, the green room is our Web3 gaming accelerator. We are providing top quality premium services for titles in the Web3 gaming space. This is sorely lacking. Many agencies are really, really poor in the quality they provide to studios. There's a lot of value extraction there. There's very little value infusion to other organizations. And so under this backdrop, we entered the space and really in the second half of 2024 began working with a number of studios that we have a lot of confidence in to help push them forward. In some cases, it was for capital raises, in some it was for business strategy, product strategy, marketing, and media services. There has been a massive interest in and engagement within the green room because there's so little quality that exists in this part of the sector. And so far and away, the most successful of any of our products and services that we've offered are those green room services. In the meantime, we've seen continued low numbers of adoption for all the rest of the products that we've launched, right? Battle in the Beyond, the Lizard Lounge, Lizard League focuses that we've been putting in place, even things like the Lookout Spaces, the Lookout Report. We're doing very, very well for Web3. So when we look at our positioning, we're top three among the space in regular listeners for the Lizard Lookout space, right? We onboarded 10,000 new users, like actual human users, through the Lizard Lounge app, right? All of these activities are really, really good from the pie that exists today, but it's not going to be meaningful if we can't grow that pie dramatically. And that means we've got to get better builders into the Web3 gaming space. Against this backdrop, we began to have some detailed discussions as an executive team and a leadership team. What is the right positioning for us to actually move the industry forward? Because if game studios are failing wildly, why is that the case? And what can we do to change it? And fundamentally, the biggest gap by far, and it's not even close in Web3 gaming, is there are no good publishers today. So we began looking at what would it be for us as an organization to set up a publisher. Are not staffed for it. We were not staffed for it. We didn't have the appropriate runway for it. We didn't have the competencies to make that a reality at the time that we were asking those questions. And so we began looking at what would be possible. Who were organizations that we could work together with to actually set up a publisher that could move the needle for studios that are not in Web3 today, that need a good publisher, that have quality gameplay, that have quality teams, proven track records that can build out top quality games. That led us through the second half of last year to talk with a number of studios, a number of organizations that are building in the Web3, in the AI space, in the gaming industry. And that was the genesis behind the Project Sentience activities. So, as we talked with organizations that are building specifically in AI, we saw the potential to bring together a number of different groups, both on the infrastructure and tech side, as well as on the business investing side of the equation, to grow to become a Web3 and AI based games publisher. Now, as we had the communication in December to the community, we also recognized that, frankly, unless you work deep in the gaming industry, not the Web3 gaming industry, but in the actual traditional gaming industry, most people have no idea what a game publisher actually does. It makes sense because there aren't game publishers in the Web3 gaming space today. Effectively, what's happened is all of the game studios that are building, they see gaps that they have. Usually it's in the funding or the marketing side of their organization. And they're going to the blockchains and saying, you're the most well capitalized organization that wants me to succeed in the sector. Please help me to do all of these tasks that I don't have the capabilities of handling. And what has happened is for the last year and a half, the blockchains have tried and for the most part completely failed to become a publisher for game studios. They're not set up as game studio publishers. Even those blockchains that are focused on gaming exclusively or primarily, they don't have the resources in house. They don't have the necessary marketing teams. They have dollars for sure. So from the business development standpoint and the funding standpoint, they're able to send money to studios to help them, but the expertise is lacking, the tooling is lacking, the strategy is lacking, the distribution sorely lacking. And so as a result, all of these studios have been going to the blockchains and saying, help us, help us. The blockchains are basically just funneling around the farming and PvP players in the space from one project to another. And then the project gets frustrated. They say, okay, we're moving blockchains. We're going to go over here instead. And the cycle repeats itself over and over again. And so we've got somewhere around 1,000 different Web3 game projects that are all launching, trying to capture this, 100,000, maybe 200,000 total people that are in Web3 in the gaming space. And it's not working. So, as we recognized this and said, okay, we can set up a Web3 gaming publisher, the question was how? What specific skill sets do we need? And what value is this going to bring? And so, to make sure that all of you understand, I'm going to do my best to give you a very quick rundown in what a publisher actually does in the gaming space. So, this is going to be the non-official Annie Cliff Notes version of publishers, but effectively the publisher is the second organization that makes sure a game gets traction in the market. And so they're going to begin with funding on the front end to make sure that game studios have enough dollars to actually build out games, which are incredibly expensive to make. They're going to support with management and tech services. They're going to have additional capacity as far as the technical resources, technical tooling, infrastructure support where needed. They're going to be responsible primarily in most cases for marketing activities, for distribution of products, for media services, for intellectual property management, for branding for the game studios. They're going to provide additional capacity on the back end for like unique services. In some cases, it might be genre specific based on what the game is building. In some cases, it might be tech specific. Some cases, it might be a geographic specific. Um, in our case, we're going to be providing full end to end services. So, a full games publisher, everything from funding on the front end all the way to data analytics on the back that's focused on unique value additions through AI and Web3. What that means is if you're a game studio and you're looking to find the right publisher, there are a lot of traditional publishers in the Web2 gaming space that won't touch you if you're involved in Web3 today. If you're a traditional game studio that's in Web 2, you could go with one of those organizations, but they have no knowledge of how to utilize Web3 tech. They don't align with Web3 ethos and philosophy. They don't understand community building in the Web3 space. Many of them don't have any particular knowledge in the AI space, which is a major difference maker for many game studios. And so, as we evaluate where is the gaming industry going over the next decade, it's AI and Web3 primarily. This is going to be the game changer that every studio in the world, if they're not using by the end of the decade, they will not be in existence anymore. And so, as we look at the unique value proposition, Lizard Labs from the beginning has been here for Web3 gaming. And so we have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in this sector. We have unique knowledge of how to build community in the Web3 space and specifically in Web3 gaming as we talk about topics like identity, consensus, culture. These items are what we've always been focused on as an organization. It's helped us build the community that we have today. We can export that knowledge to game studios along with tactical feedback for what works, recognizing a lot of the mistakes that have been made in the past. And by working with a lot of newer organizations that are spinning up or getting ready to launch titles today that don't have the baggage of having failed mints over the past 3 years of having communities that are just waiting for number to go up, but they can actually focus on the true core purpose, which is launching a good game and using the tech to support that, using NFTs, using tokens, using DAOs, using a decentralized ethos of connecting with the community in a positive way. These organizations have a major growth hack compared to others that don't have an organization like Lizard Labs behind them. In addition, from a Project Sentience standpoint, we're going to be partnering with three other organizations that provide the services that we don't have the skill set in house to do from a Lizard Lab standpoint. And so the first of those, as I alluded to, is the Green Room. We are a joint venture partner in the Green Room today with Not Corrupt Media. So many of you know Andrew Wall and his media organization. Um, we provide a portion of the services that Green Room offers to customers. Not Corrupt Media provides another group that's focused primarily on the marketing and media services side, some branding as well. The combination of the Green Room coming in fully to this partnership where all of the accelerator activities that we are doing today through Green Room will roll into the publisher is the first of the three core gaps that we had. So in order to be a full publisher, we need substantial marketing chops to be able to prove the model for from Web 2 can be adapted to work for Web 3 titles, to work for titles that are building on AI. We have a proven track record now of multiple years where we've been doing that in the Web 3 gaming space with the marketing team that we have on hand that's coming through the Green Room. Additionally, we didn't have the skill set on hand with AI. Now, a lot of you know our team, so we have multiple developers, technical resources, and knowledgeable business leads that have AI background. A lot of you don't know, I actually worked in AI for a few years prior to coming to Web3, including a book that I was working through, really showcasing the potential of AI. I became more focused on Web3 because I believed it was closer and still do to being the difference maker. But AI for sure is the longer term difference maker compared to Web3 overall. Matt, who's our CTO, Archangel, is primarily an AI lead most recently on the tech side. He has a lot of time in Web3, but this was one of the main reasons that we brought him in as a CTO. He's got gaming, he's got Web3, and most importantly, he had AI from the very get go. We have seen through our team, we've got other devs that are also knowledgeable in the AI space. But we have seen if you don't have one of the leaders in AI, you're not going to be able to attract the attention that you need from the market. You're also not going to be able to provide meaningful tools that are differentiated enough from other platforms and infrastructures that's going to move the dial for game studios. And so as we began looking at who could we work with to provide a publisher that supports AI, the easy answer, and there was no second choice when we considered this, was the ASI organization. So, for those that don't know, ASI is the largest decentralized AI provider in the world by far. So, the three largest AI organizations globally in the Web3 space merged together a couple years ago to make ASI. Since then, they've continued to acquire more organizations underneath their overarching umbrella. The ASI organization is focused on ethical, decentralized AGI, so artificial general intelligence developments. They have a very aligned ethos and value proposition to what we have, in that they believe by bringing AGI to the world in a positive, decentralized way, we'll have better results than the typical Web 2 process for introducing a new technology. The same belief that we have where Web3 is a better way to provide game value to players. It's that same core ethos. And so as we started having discussions with the ASI and the organizations underneath, we recognized there was a complete value alignment for us, which is the number one most important thing that you need to have when you're looking at potential partnerships or mergers or acquisitions or other, organization restructuring together. So against that backdrop, ASI offers the best tool set in the world, the best infrastructure in the world for organizations that are building in a decentralized way, leveraging AI. They have by far the most funding. They have the most potential for becoming that central hub of decentralized AI development. And so we began discussions with them the second half of last year that progressed to the point where, as we announced in December, we're preparing a single unified organization between Lizard Labs and the Green Room, as well as Sophiaverse, which is the gaming arm underneath ASI today, and their venture hub, which is effectively the similar organization to what our Green Room does, provides additional consulting and services in the AI and the DeFi space for the Singularity and ASI organization. And so these four groups that would be coming together to form a single unified publisher have all of the skill sets that's needed. If you go down the line, it's actually pretty remarkable. I still have our like back of the envelope napkin. I'm just going to pull it out for a second as we outlined in the end of summer last year all of the end-to-end uh, game publisher activities. We were able to put a check mark by every single one just based on those four organizations alone, right? Everything from the distribution, the marketing activities, the funding, Web3, AI, tooling, dev, game studio support, et cetera. So everything that we need to be a top flight publisher, we're not spinning up from scratch. We have organizations that are doing it today. They have not been doing it as a single unified publishing entity. However, we aren't having to recreate the wheel here with a brand new organization. In addition, recognizing that our future as the nexus of Web3 gaming has always been to become a centralized entity that is at the hub of the top games building, becoming a publisher makes perfect sense. It had always been a part of our longer term vision. We expected, frankly, that it would take about 5 years for us to get there because we were looking at scaling linearly. Many of you that have been in the startup space know as an organization, you always hit these plateaus where you grow to a certain point and then you have to make some major changes in the size and scope of your organization to get to that next plateau, right? In order for us to get to a full Web3 game publisher, we were going to need to spend several years onboarding and developing the talent and the activities to to grow the organization to provide that full services that a game studio would need. However, this organization that we've outlined, that we're calling Project Sentience as a code name, is fully equipped after a few short months of putting together these different components in the organizations into a single, unified process to provide full end-to-end game publishing activities. So the question then we have is, all right, if that's the case, do we have the right people to make it work? We've got the organizations, presumably they're doing some of the key activities. But for me, in order to have the appeal that a game publisher needs, you also have to have valid leadership teams and valid proof that you're going to be able to deliver. Otherwise, a game studio is not going to sign on with you as as a publisher. And so, as part of the activities, the latter part of last year, we spent several months, about 4 months, going through and identifying the right talent to lead each of the different arms of the organization, right? Marketing, distribution, product, gaming, business development, and so forth. So you'll see, I think Lou linked into the chat. Well, if you haven't, Lou, please link in the overview of the leadership team that we've assembled, the majority of whom have 20 years plus in the gaming industry, leading and supporting publishers and game studios. And these are not your, 100,000 DAU game studios. These are the best organizations in the world that have done game publishing and game development over the past 2.5 decades. The individuals that we've set up in this leadership team have that experience, know exactly what it takes to build a full publisher out, and are coming together because we all believe in the value of decentralized and AI ethos changing the way that game as an industry is done today. And so there's very little innovation. Many of you that are gamers recognize that the gaming industry is really in a pretty bad place right now. There's a handful of studios that do really good things, and everyone else is just basically copycatting that, or they're just recycling existing IP. Every year FIFA launches a new game. There's nothing new, right? So as an industry, gaming is ripe for disruption, and we believe AI and Web3 is going to be the proximate cause for that. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that somebody is going to become a game publisher that has AI and Web3 as their core value proposition that they're offering. And the industry will absolutely latch on to that organization. And that will be one of the key winners over the next decade in gaming. We believe that that should be us based on our knowledge and the team that we've assembled. If not, someone else will though. And so that question comes from a community standpoint. Okay, if we're going to set up a Web3 game publisher, you've convinced me, Annie. Why do I actually care from a Lizard Labs ecosystem standpoint? And some of the questions that we've gotten, and I even see some in the chat, is what does it mean for us from like a branding, from an art, from a lore standpoint? What does it mean from a token standpoint? What does it mean from an Ethlizard NFT standpoint for the LARP suits? How does all of this work? Because at the end of the day, we recognize that there has to be value that's coming back to the community. This is why we're here in the first place. And so answering those questions is that next step that we need to take to reflect on why does becoming the game publisher in the industry matter. So I'm going to talk through this in a second, but I want to pause for just a moment. Lou, is there anything you want to add on the why publisher question or the how publisher question today before we talk more about kind of the future structures of the organizations and how it fits into the broader Lizard Labs ecosystem currently?
Yeah, sure. Just a few things to chime in with. If we're looking at already just what we've been building with Lizard Labs and with the Green Room, we already have could be 50% or more of what a publisher would be doing. So as Annie's been saying, like this has been in our long-term vision of how to do it. But this new structure that we're exploring with Project Sentience, it's essentially a way to speed run it, right? To where we're literally just accelerating our progress massively in regards to funding potential, tech potential, all of these things. So this is already the direction we were going, but this is literally a way to take all the things we're doing to the next level immediately, right? So in that part, Annie has mentioned, some of the other bits in regards to AI and tech and some of these things that we can speak to a little bit later, even things that we've already been planning again prior to this alliance and some of these bits. But Annie, yeah, I think you've put it pretty well in that regard. We're already doing a large part of what a publisher does because we've seen this need in the industry for a while, right? And if you look at one of the other things, just to mention a little bit more on the fundamentals of what we're already doing, um, the Green Room is one of the only businesses in Web3 actually making real revenue that's not just selling tokens or NFTs to people. Like, it's a real business. And there's not many of those around. So there's already a lot of strong fundamental basis in the things that we are doing today. We've already developed a lot of these relationships with the top studios in Web3 in a lot of those regards. So for us, this again is just really amplifying and taking everything we're doing to the next level.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that, Lou. And I think we've gotten this question some too. Like, why do I care if the green room is making revenue? I'm just holding Liz coin. I want to really like unpack that over the next bit of the discussion today. Um, but fundamentally, as a DAO, all of the value that our organization is bringing in, all of the utility that we provide is coming back directly to our holders, right? Lizcoin holders, ETHLizard holders, LARP suit holders. There is no other entity that exists that's getting value accrual of any kind from Lizard Labs today. So I want to be very clear about that, just from the get go, because I think this is often misunderstood. I know why it's misunderstood. Having seen pitch decks, having watched the sector grow over the past 4 years, most projects that are in Web3 today, the value accrual is going to an equity organization somewhere, right? A company structure that's in some jurisdiction that makes sense, that's holding all of the value. And the token is a secondary, whatever it is, right? There's some that are used for like general utility for purchase. There's some like nebulous sentiment value. There's meme value of tokens. But generally speaking, the actual value accrual of the organization is not going to the token for most projects that are working in Web3 today. Right? We know that's true. That is not true for Lizard Labs. And so, very clearly stated, the Lizcoin token is the token that's generating all of the value for the gaming subdebt part of the organization. The ETHLizards NFTs are the tokens that are generating the value from the portfolio sub outside of the organization. I'm going to talk in a second about how those fit together to the broader Lizard Lab structure and to the publisher, because both of those are critically important elements to making this publisher go, right? And they fit together very beautifully. So we'll walk through that here in just a second. Um, Let me pause for just a moment and ask in the chat, anybody else, please, if there are questions on, again, like I still don't get why a publisher matters. Like, what's the business model for it? ask those in the chat now, because what we're going to do is we're recording the entire AMA today, but we will also be pulling some clips out to share with the broader public. Right. So some of these are going to go on our socials. We'll drop obviously the whole recording, but also some highlights into Discord for people that are not here today. So if you have a question currently, there's probably 10 lizards that are not listening live to us that also have that same question. So if you don't ask it, you're also depriving them of the ability to hear that information on the back end. So I'm going to try and highlight a couple of questions that are related here that people have dropped in the past. What would scaling up the Project Sentience team look like? Who else is the team looking for past the leadership that we've gotten? Is this a big hurdle? So, and I forget who dropped this. It was earlier on in the chat. Um, Scaling up the team will look very similar to what we did for Lizard Labs over the past couple of years, in that we've got different, basically different groups. Some are going to be more on the dev side, some on the creative and branding side, some on marketing, some on distribution. But for each of those core components, we have an executive that has all the knowledge to build out the team that they will need. In most cases, it will be small to start with. We will be very targeted in the studios that we're going to actually work with. But that is actually going to be one of the easier activities for us to do, is to put the right people in place. We've got a number of great team members that are in Lizard Labs today, that are in the Sophiaverse and or like the broader ASI organization, specifically around AI. And we have a huge number of contacts primarily into the Web 2 gaming, marketing, and publishing industries, not in Web 3, right? That's the core value proposition that we're providing from Lizard Labs today. We don't need a whole bunch of people that are so focused on here's what Web3 gaming is doing today and what it needs to do in the future. That's not how we're going to get out of the mess that we're in as an industry. We need outside thinking that knows how to actually build games, to combine that with the knowledge of what Web3 has done wrong and how it needs to go moving forward. Um, Next question: anticipating an inevitable bear market, how do we think that would affect our publishing? Um, it will, but only in the sense that like general funding from a bear market standpoint, and I'm going to say from like macroeconomic downturns more so than Web3 bear markets, is relevant, right? So gaming as an industry, it gets harder to fundraise for when markets are bad traditionally. But we are not building a publisher that is focused on being a Web3 game publisher. We are building a game publisher that will have decentralized and AI elements that we are bringing to the game studios that are coming into this industry. So bear markets are not a core focus for us as a risk point. Game studios continue building through bear markets in Web 2, and they will, in this future, Web 2 coming into Web 3 space as well. So part of this is we have to get out of that cycle that's so concerned about what is the current market sentiment. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll just add a little more context to that, Dwayne. From what we saw in the last bear market, it's essentially we will see a certain reduction in services on things like marketing, but in terms of like building support, development, AI tech, like all of these other verticals, marketing is the most impacted. All the other verticals, as Annie said, like studios are going to build in the bear to then launch, in better market conditions.
mhm. Yes, agreed. Scott, I appreciate the comment too. I'm going to make a quick note too. So you guys see Scott in the chat. Scott is one of the green room leads that we have been working with for a while now, coming from the Not Corrupt Media side. Um, deep, deeply knowledgeable industry from the traditional gaming space. Um, He's the guy that basically helped launch PlayStation 4, and you can go through the rest of his resume. It's as impressive as anyone you're going to see that's working in Web3 today. He has been one of the leads alongside Andrew Wall, alongside our executive team here today, alongside a few other folks that I'll mention to you briefly in a bit, coming from the Sophiaverse side of the house, that are the reason that we believe that we will be successful with this game publisher. And so, yeah, I should have mentioned he was like employee number 3 or something at Twitch too. Scott, you can give us your actual employee number if you want. But he joined us on Lizard Labs, on the Lizard Lookout space a few weeks ago to talk about game publishing. But we are going to be successful because of individuals like him. You guys will get to meet him in a future AMA as well. But this is not something that we're trying to do ourselves just through Lizard Labs. We recognize what we are good at and what we don't have the appropriate knowledge for. And so bringing in the right industry veterans is essential. Um, the next question I wanted to hit on: don't big traditional game studios have their own publisher? Would they still utilize us? If so, the answer is yes. For larger game studios, this is true. In some cases, they might choose to use us. We will most often, though, be going after indie and double A type of studios. So taking some targeted bets on proven organizations or studios that have games that we believe are going to be successful, not from a Web3 context, but from a general gaming context. So we won't be going immediately to compete with the top size organizations against Nintendo, for instance. But the sector is ripe for a disruptive publisher to come in and change the way that publishing and the gaming industry is working today as a whole. And so, if we weren't very confident we could be a publisher that changes the narrative and changes the way that we think about the industry, this wouldn't be worth taking all the work that's going to be in front of us to set this thing up.
I'll
Um,
mention also, Annie, the other big reason why somebody would come to us instead of another larger publisher is we're going to be one of the only ones doing Web3 and AI tech.
mhm,
That
yeah,
in itself, anybody coming from Web2 into Web3, we're the perfect partner for them.
mhm, that's right. Najaf asked, when can a new gaming studio start using these products? And then Odin asked, how have we onboarded game studios already? I'm going to take these together. So we are going through over the next few months the hard work of putting together these organizations into a single publishing entity. So there's a lot of work, as you can imagine, in a variety of ways that needs to be done. We won't be onboarding studios to use this publisher and our services until we have the appropriate framework in place. It will be probably both quicker and slower than we expect, right? In a lot of ways. And so that said, I have already had three top shelf studios in Web3 gaming that have reached out to me based on the announcement or based on word of mouth that they want to use this as a publisher, right? So these are, again, by any measure, top 50 organizations in Web3 gaming today. We have not we haven't approached anybody about using us as an organization, but based on our track record of quality delivery, based on the green room success that we've had, based on our positioning, based on their need to have a good publisher that is building in the AI and Web3 space, we're already having top studios ask us if they can sign up and when they get those services available as well. So we know there is demand. There's real demand. Studios are glad to part with a share of their revenue. They're glad to pay an organization that's going to be adding value back to them by bringing gamers in, by bringing revenue in, by supporting them with the analytics tools, the tech tools that they need. And so, in general, we know that there will be interest. We will ensure, though, that quality is first because the most important value that we have, that we bring, is trust. And there's not a second place because as an organization, so few studios that are building in Web3 today have any trust that's left with their community, with other partners, with the market at large. We are very, very cautious to hold on to that trust because there's no way to get it back once you lose that. So we will be cautious about the speed at which we onboard studios, but there is already massive demand for an organization just like the one that we were setting up. Um,
Yeah, I'll mention as we've looked around at the space, how painful has it been to watch some of these Web2 and Web3 studios launch stuff where it's like, hey guys, if you would have just had the right advisors or just the right consultants here, that you wouldn't have made those multi-million dollar mistakes, right? These are some of the things that studios are coming to us for, right? And on the other point of this, another note, as Annie's talking about some of these studios coming into us, uh, this is also a two-way relationship to where they can come to us for services that if there are things they do well in terms of AI tech, Web3 tech, other things, we can also then turn around and sell that to the rest of the market. So we've designed our pipelines in a way where it's two-way traffic. You can come to us, but also we can support you from all of these various angles, all of which results in revenue for us.
mhm. That's right. And Elif asked, maybe a little tongue in cheek, are we going to work for AI Web 2 games? And I'm going to say actually kind of, yes. Our focus is not really going after the Web 3 games that are in the sector today currently. There might be a small number that we will work with in the future, but that would be the exception rather than the general approach. We are going after proven Web 2 game studios, not the organizations that have never built a game before that were really good at raising money and are now trying to figure out how to launch a project in the Web3 gaming space. Again, like I know we've been working with a lot of the top builders, so there are projects out there, right? The team like at Wildcard, the team at Azra, um, the Block Lords team. There's a handful of others that we know like have that pedigree that can build games and can build them well, but they are again very much the exception. And so we will be hedging our bets a lot more moving forward with this publisher because frankly we're taking a lot more risk choosing to publish a game than we are doing an early stage investment in a Web3 game studio from the portfolio sub side of the house. We had from Feather, is there a way to see and track revenue earned from things like the green room and in the future, the publisher services similar to Web2 company reporting earnings? Um, we have been reporting and giving feedback back to the community on green room revenue. So we averaged roughly 200K per month for the last 4 months of the year in 2024. That number is ticking up in 2025, and so the green room activities are set to be profitable in the next couple of months for us as an organization, which again, as Lou mentioned, is pretty rarefied air for Web3 today, like actual revenue services that are coming in. Um, we are not a Web 2 corporate organization. And so the way that we legally and financially report information can't be the same as Web 2 because that's not the type of organization structure that we have in place. But providing transparency for the DAO operations, providing information on studios that are working with the publisher will be let's say, a community focused approach that we take based on the publishing industry at large. So, in some cases, we might hold decisions on games that are working with us as a publisher close to the vest for confidentiality reasons. But as always, our intent is to be as transparent with the community as possible because that decentralized approach is frankly why we're here, right? We want to be as close to the community as we possibly can get. That's what drew us to the industry in the first place. Um, Similar to that, we have the question: how will revenue be divided and shared between Liz holders and others we're partnering with? Um, so, as I mentioned, from a Lizard Lab standpoint, all of the value on the gaming sub side of the house is coming to Liz coin holders. A key part of our tokenomics model has been a revenue distribution approach, starting at the 2-year mark post TGE, where we would begin returning value to token stakers and active participants in the ecosystem as that profit is coming into the organization more broadly. And so that expectation is that we would continue to provide value to Lizcoin holders today. The joining of tokens and of budgets and of teams and of structure between Lizard Labs, the Green Room, the Singularity Venture Hub, and Sophiaverse is still in the works technically. However, our intention is that these would be merging to form a new organization in some way in the future. We're having a lot of dialogues about what that looks like. It's really critical. Anyone that's gone through M&A activity in the past understands that every organization has unique value that they're bringing, and you want to make sure that you're returning value effectively to all of the groups that are involved. That is our focus today. And so there's a lot of deep discussions that are going on before we would take a final decision to go forward in a new organization structure like this. We will vote on this through the gaming sub DAO structure. So Liz coin holders and stakers will be eligible to participate in DAO voting for this publisher activity. So stay tuned for that. As part of the decision making process there will be more information that we provide to you based on the specific terms, financial terms, technical team structures, organizational framework, etc., that will be part of that sharing with the community. You will be required to sign an NDA pseudonymously, right? So we're not requiring doxing for this, but you will have to sign the NDA using your wallet on chain in order to access that information to make to make the most detailed decision. If you don't care, if you don't want all that level of detail, you're not required to. You can still vote as long as you are staking Lizcoin. But this will, as always, be a core decision that we need to make as an organization moving forward. So certainly the team believes that this is the right pathway for us forward to have the most impact on the Web3 gaming space in both a decentralized and an AI driven way. And the community has always been amazing at providing us good questions and good feedback. Sometimes there are things that we overlooked or we don't have the details. Other times it's items that we didn't clarify well enough to people for them to understand, and we need to add more, more information and more details before we decide to go forward in that way. So, as a group, please be on the lookout for that. It will still be likely a month or two before we have all the details that we can line up and share with you. But this approach we believe very firmly is the right one, and the terms of that that negotiation and the discussions between the entities are, as you might guess, very nuanced and very deep that we need to walk through.
Yeah, I'll
um
just mention that we have a long history of DAO and governance, and this is one of the pillars that Annie mentioned earlier of our focus on community is consensus, right? So we'll be having a lot more dialogue with you all. We know that there's still some details we can't provide everything yet as we're still working through some of that, but we have a very long history of doing that for those of you in the audience who might be newer. In my opinion, we have one of the most valuable communities in Web3 that has in fact given us some of the most valuable feedback with our previous proposals to help make the organization what it is.
mhm, that's right. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch back up through the chat while Lou's talking, so I appreciate that. um Cool. So Nikki asked the question that I think I'll cover here. Will the gaming and publisher side of the project be the major revenue source for Lizard Labs? And if so, if it fails, is there a backup to have enough revenue coming in to keep Lizard Labs running? Um, yes, on the gaming sub side of things, the publisher will be the organization going forward, assuming that we decide to go this direction as a DAO. The reason is if you look at all of the different products and services that we're offering, all of those fit into the publisher directly. So the Lizard Lounge app, right, from a tech standpoint, is perfectly designed to become the hub for a new game publisher, right? It's perfectly designed to become a launcher of launchers, right? An identity system of identity systems for game studios in Web3 and coming from Web2. It's perfectly designed to provide all of the infrastructure components, the financial framework for staking and loot box distributions, the prize pools that we offer today, the Lizard League as a component of the Lounge app for tournaments, esports, content creation, wagering, all of those elements that we've been building out roll perfectly seamlessly in, maybe not perfectly seamlessly, but they roll very seamlessly into a new publisher, right? A big part of what we're doing on the tech side and on the product side right now is in discussions with Sophiaverse. Here's the tech that they're bringing. They've got multiple new AI solutions that they've recently launched into the market or that are almost ready to come in. The key question is, how do we integrate those into the tech that we've already got built? What do we do from a branding and an integration standpoint on the IP side of things, which I'll talk about briefly? I know there's some questions on that in the chat. But the overall combination of those on the tech side works very well with the publisher. In addition, the Green Room and the Singularity Venture Hub are providing about 30% of the services that a publisher would be doing anyways. And so rolling that into the publisher model makes perfect sense. To the broader question, if the publisher doesn't work, what options do we have? The publisher revenue model is going to be designed so that the publisher stays in business, regardless of whether every game is successful or not. And so there's some element of capital raising that's going to be necessary to ensure that the runway is there to scale the publisher. And we'll talk about the like funding of different game studios in a few minutes here. But to grow the publisher to where it needs to be, we're going to be leaning on both revenue that we already have coming in today from the Green Room, from the Venture Hub on the Singularity side, from product sales, from infrastructure sales on the Sophiaverse side, along with future revenue that's coming from the game studios that would be published by that organization. And so, Nikki, I love the question. That's exactly the question that we're always asking ourselves, which most studios in Web3 are ignoring, which is how are we going to get revenue to keep this thing going once the funding runs out from the initial capital raises, right? That hurts us, frankly spoken, a lot of the time. Because as soon as you have revenue coming in, everyone in the sector looks at you and says, oh, well, we see that there's some revenue, so maybe the scaling potential is more limited. That's true in startup world across the board. It's not ideal because it generally prevents founders from trying to actually ship because they can do better just raising more money. That's not the way that we've always approached things, though. We've always said we will build it first. We will launch the product, we will generate revenue, then we will go back to raise more money to scale it further, right? That's what we've been doing from day one when we launched Battle in the Beyond, when we did the seed, the seed round raise last year, when we scaled up the green room, when we launched the lounge. All of these are very systematic to make sure that you always know who we are and what we're building towards as an organization before you're choosing whether to be involved with Lizard Labs or not. Because there are many ways that we know you can spend your money, right? Meme coins, AI speculation, go shoot for the next 100x if that's what you want. If instead you want to be here to ethically build the future of gaming as an industry with a long term mindset that values decentralization, that values integration with the community, that is on the cutting edge of innovation in tech using AI and Web3, we are the project that you should be part of. And that vision has not changed since 2 years ago when we put out the initial white paper. So that said, like that's why you should be here if you're interested in projects that are doing that. We're probably not going to be 1,000x value in the next 6 months because we're focused on building, not on generating hype that's unwarranted by the actual studio behind it.
Yeah, as Annie mentioned, we've always been building for the long term sustainability, and to make sure that we're a long term organization that's here providing real value to the industry, not just trying to sell you shit and then rug you. That's been the total opposite of our approach. We've been more of the under promise and over deliver, right? So in that regard, we plan to stick with this. We plan to keep delivering real, tangible value to our community and to our partners.
That's right.
I,
Elif had a good
I see
question.
one quick question
Sure.
from Odin's Blade. What was the estimated time frame to start onboarding? 4 months ago, we've already been onboarding people into the green room. So some of those relationships we take to the next level. Other ones, as we continue to scale up our offerings, we'll just continue to onboard and scale up from there.
Yeah. Let me also make a comment on this point for studio size and scaling as well. So a key part of this is that as we are evaluating the products and the tech integration, specifically around like the lounge and Lizard League products that we have on the Lizard Lab side and that Sophiaverse has on their part of the organization, we recognize that there will be development work that we had planned to do on our own that very likely would not be value added for the organization. As such, from our development and creative team side, we are pausing most of the works on the product side, right? On the Lizard Lounge and Lizard League for now, until we can identify the appropriate integration points with the AI tech that Sophiaverse is going to bring to the organization. And so this is a key part of us making sure that we have sufficient runway to build out the publisher fully. Um, but the scaling up part, frankly, is a lot easier given that we already have an amazing team. We have on the Sophiaverse side, dev team that already exists today. We have an amazing creative team that, again, I know everyone loves the Lizards. The content that they've been putting out is fantastic. And that is going to lead me to Ella's question, which is talk to us about Lizard Labs as a brand, NFTs, Lizcoin positioning, etc. So in a multi-organization process like this, we can't promise anything specifically, but I would say it's been very clear to all of the leadership team members across the organizations. Lizard Labs has built out the most enduring brand, the highest value community by far of any of the organizations that are part of this. And that key value proposition that you guys are bringing, that the Lizards, the brand, the IP is bringing, is a major part of the reason that ASI, Singularity, and Sophiaverse wanted to work with us in the first place. And so We are evaluating the overall final brand positioning for the publisher. Project Sentience is a placeholder name. It's very likely, though, that we would continue with either a sub brand of Lizard Labs or a primary brand that retains the Lizard Labs framework in some way that's integrating now the Sophia IP in a way that makes sense, right? So you all have seen the iguana. I think Lou or LF or someone posted the iguana artwork. We've been building with AI as a core component in our lore and our IP from day one. The lounge is designed, Lizard League is designed to have AI agents powering those entities. And so the question that like, what are we going to do if we're bringing AI in here? We've always planned to bring AI in here. It's maybe just a different partner than we were planning to use to actually power the infrastructure behind it. So that said, the Ethlizards NFTs are not going to change. Lizcoin, if we do have some sort of a token adjustment, the value of Lizcoin will be rolled into whatever the new entity is going to be in a reasonable way. And what that means is you're going to see what that is before we actually vote on the proposal for it. That's my promise to you as a community. So there's not going to be some like hidden, oh, we didn't know what was happening. We are a DAO. You have the information that you need to make an informed decision before we move forward with any changes like that.
I'll just mention a little more while you're talking about the AI tech, Annie. We know we've been seeing obviously AI agents becoming a big narrative lately and some of these things, which is it's great for us because we've been planning this for over 6 months to put AI agents in the Lizard Lounge, and every lizard you're talking to will be able to talk back, right, and be able to do certain things for you. We've been planning this with our Elemental Lizards collection that's upcoming a little later, where these are going to be your AI companions to go with you and be also related to your lizard identity in the ecosystem. So as you're looking at some of these uh, AI agent narratives and some of these swarms and some of these things that are powering some of the tech in the industry, that's exactly what we're doing. Not only are we doing that, not only are we going to have our own in-house tech that we'll be selling through Singularity and using it in our own products, we'll also be scooping up and bringing under the umbrella to sell the best tech in the industry to others. So when you talk about some of how the token might power AI tech or certain some of these AI agents or this or that, like we're going to be doing all of that. So when people are looking for a narrative to latch onto and some of these things that we'll discuss when it comes into marketing in the next phases and things, like you can certainly expect to see like we have fully embraced AI as an organization already for the last 6 months. We didn't really speak so much about it publicly, but obviously now is a good time to start talking about that publicly.
That's right. Um, Quick question from Beaver. Are planning to list Lizcoin on a larger exchange, Binance or Bybit? And if so, when can we expect this? Um, the answer is yes, eventually, but it will be part of this broader Web3 game publisher scaling, right? So you guys also hopefully now understand, now that you've seen the announcement and this vision that we were building to, it really didn't make sense, even if it had been value added, which our data shows was not. Studios in Web3 gaming that were being launched on any centralized exchange except for Binance, it was always, not always, it was like 99% of the time a losing value proposition for them based on the cost that they had for the value they got from the exchange. Even Binance was 50-50 at best. So that was a losing proposition in general. In addition, the idea that we're now scaling the organization dramatically and we will have an entirely new structure that we're going to be able to go to a Binance, a Coinbase with, et cetera, to look at listing there made sense for us to wait as well. We obviously couldn't share all of that with the community, but even not knowing that, it still made sense for us to go sex only launch. And so, I'm sorry, to do Dex only launch and not have a sex that we list on. That said, it is absolutely part of our plan. And a key part is giving more access to people that want to participate in the ecosystem. To be truly decentralized, you need that easy access for folks that are not part of your community already. That will be a key part of the tokenomics and financial structure setup that we're looking at as part of this activity. Um, I'm going to give a quick shout out because there's like a huge block of text messages in the stage. I know that we just recently had major airdrop, the DTR XBT airdrop that Cypress and our liaisons were able to land. Big shout out there. The reason I want to call this out is a huge part of the value proposition of our community is information and alpha and access to other groups that are building in the sector, and the ETH Lizards NFTs in particular, and then also in some cases the LARP suit NFTs, in other cases Lizcoin stakers are getting access to the best that Web3 gaming has to offer today. And so I get questions occasionally like, "Oh, what, when are we going to get another airdrop from the studio?" If you were one of the most active participants in our ecosystem today, you just got what, 300, $600, $200, depending on what your participation was from another project that values us, right? So if you're looking for opportunities to continue to see and get involved in other projects that are building the sector, we are one of the leaders in the space for that. And so again, like, we're going to keep repeating this, but for the last 3 years, it's been absolutely ridiculous the opportunity that we've had specifically on the portfolio sub-DAO side of the house to participate with other projects, right? Participate with launch pads and mints and whitelists and giveaways and so forth. So again, big shout out to the team that's been continually working overtime. That will continue as part of our vision, as part of what we're bringing in terms of value to our community, regardless of the publisher. And I want to talk for a second now about what the portfolio side of the organization looks like in a publisher-based model. So, the first point that I want to highlight is today we have gaming sub-DAO backed by Lizcoin and the portfolio sub-DAO backed by ETH Lizards NFTs. The LARP suits fall underneath this part of the organization as well. On the portfolio side of the house, we have Fund One, as we're calling it, which was the very first capital that we've deployed over the last 3 years to projects that the council is responsible for. We have our own launch pad that we've spun up over the past year. We're going to continue to give access to a small number of projects on the launch pad that we have high quality belief in, and we have all of the community and utility aspects that I was highlighting, as well as the identity aspect of being an ETH Lizard and a LARP suit holder as part of Lizard Labs. Those will continue into the future. What we will be bringing online as well is for our community to have access to additional top quality gaming investments on the Web 2 side of the house. So, this publisher that we are spinning up will be, like all publishers, investing in some of the games that we are publishing for. In some cases, we might basically be fully funding a game studio. In other cases, it might be partial. In other cases, we might be leading, a round. We might be giving access to that round to a lot of folks that are in our contact space that want to become involved here. There is a tremendous amount of capital that is interested in being deployed to top quality games that are using AI and that are using Web3 that are able to build, but it's really difficult to identify those studios. That's why having a team built of industry veterans that knows what to look for to identify good quality games is essential here. Not good quality Web3 games, but actual good quality games. And so our targeted structure right now, as we look at the future of this organization, is that the portfolio sub-DAO side of Lizard Labs will be given direct access for Fund 2, which will be the actual investment arm of the publisher. So, this games publisher that will be raising additional funding, tens of millions of dollars, to help fund studios, primarily Web 2 studios that are going to be coming into Web 3. They're going to be coming in to use the AI toolset of ASI. That access we will provide to the portfolio sub-DAO. This is the current structure that we're planning to ensure that that core vision, that core value proposition that we've always been steering to on the portfolio sub-DAO side since back when, what was it, Lou? Was it LIP 2 or 4 or something, like way back in early 2022?
3, yeah.
3, okay. When we set up the investment DAO, that will be maintained in the future as part of the publisher organization, but with actual higher quality studios that you have a chance to participate with. So that said, that is a core part of the value proposition for the ETH Lizards NFTs, LARP suit holders. So we would expect to use our launch pad as well for some of these games as they're launching tokens, as they're doing capital raises. So we have all of the infrastructure. We've got all the community, we've got all the knowledge now that's needed to be this key player as we're onboarding actual studios that can make a difference in the sector. We believe is very different than what a lot of the other organizations that are trying to build launch pads or alpha groups that are in Web3 are focused on. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
going to try and
this
scroll
is
down.
this is the this is the other point is yeah, as you're making any, it's when you imagine some of the people who are going to be coming from Web 2 into Web 3 over these next few years, and then you imagine getting access to those funding rounds or early access games or uh, token airdrops or NFTs and those kind of things, like that's what's coming next, right? Again, taking what we do now, which is already great. If you look at NFT mints over the last 3 years or so, I would argue to say we've probably gotten maybe 90% of the top ones. No joke. Our liaison team has killed it, and we're really picky. We turn down maybe 80 to 90% as well, and only offer the best. So again, but imagine now taking the best to the next level again. That's what we're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, Lou, I was just gonna make a comment too on the screen freezing. We gotta frame this photo of you with the big grin
I
on
know
it.
people keep spamming these photos.
So, yeah, so okay. I think that I've hit on most of the questions at this point. The last one that I saw, how will revenue be divided and shared between Liz holders and others? Um, this is part of the discussion. To be very transparent, like part of putting together these organizations into a new publisher is making sure that we recognize and understand what the value proposition has been for each of the tokens in the past, and that we maintain that same value, or really it should be more going forward. The market will tell us, as always, if this is actually a good thing. At the end of the day, though, the value proposition should be A plus B plus some type of premium on top, because we're actually building out a publisher. Now, what can we say about market interest in this? Because it's of course this is a very big doubling down on what we know to be working today, and as AWOL always likes to say, burning with fire the things that are not working in the sector. It is a risk. We recognize this. However, we believe that it is a risk worth taking, and the reason that I feel very confident in that is, as I go out and talk to the most knowledgeable folks that I'm aware of in the space, I talked to the top VCs about capital raises. I talked to the top builders that have actually built and launched billion-dollar games in the past, that know what the hell they're doing. And I've outlined this vision for them. Every single one of them has said either I will invest in that organization, or I want to work with you as a partner in a more active way than we are today. These are the top builders, and to be fully transparent, some of these are folks that have said, "Hey, I don't understand yet how the Lizard Lounge is going to add enough value to my organization for me to want to partner with you to put our products or our games into the Lizard Lounge." Right? But as soon as I explain to them, "Here's the publisher that we're setting up," they're very much immediately intrigued and want to know how they can get involved. And so the market is hungry for a publisher. It is the biggest opportunity in the sector by far, and having both the leading organization in the world for AI and Lizard Labs now from the Web3 side being merged together is an enormous, enormous difference maker that is able to attract attention and interest from beyond the walls of this very narrowly focused Web3 gaming space that exists today. So those are I think all of the questions that I'd seen so far. Let me jump back into the chat and see anything else. Um, We're okay. From NDRW, you're working on ensuring future token structures are fair for Liz holders. Yes, absolutely. And look, just to be very frank, the team is equally incentivized to make sure that's the case, right? We're none of us are here because of the salary that we're getting paid, right? We all are Lizcoin holders. The value of Lizcoin is very important to us. We are Ethlizard holders. The value of Ethlizards are very important to us. And so making sure that we have those two structures that are taken care of in a new organization, even if you don't believe that we would do so from a community-centric focus as well, I hope that you can believe that at a minimum, self-interest is going to be enough to ensure that we make sure that there's value coming to everyone here today. So I think that that probably speaks for itself. But if it doesn't, feel free to hit me up. And again, once we put forth the proposal for how that framework would look like, anyone that has concerns, please raise them. Right? We've never been shy of taking on tough questions. Frankly, that's why we have been so successful, because our community makes us better and sharpens that tool that we're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I'll just mention also that this has been a thing that's come up historically is the questions of how do you provide value to this asset or that asset, and always we've managed to align with our community on the various pieces, and to give you the peace of mind, we're very aware of how things have gone in Web3 in the past with merger acquisitions, all of these various pieces of what people have done well and what they haven't done well. So all of those things we're taking into account. And absolutely, just as we've done every step of the way since coming on board here, we're going to make sure our holders are taken care of. You're our OGs that have been supporting us from the beginning. Of course, we're going to take care of you. I know that that's not the case for all projects, but for us, that's a fact.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And look, to be really frank too, as we look at the space, one of the options that we considered was, you know what, the green room's doing really well. Maybe we should just put our focus into steering the green room, generating revenue, and we'll continue supporting the studios that are here in Web3 gaming today. We believe that we can make that into a very profitable organization on its own. And that could be the extent of our growth plans for the next 2 or 3 years. And let's just make sure that we bring in as much revenue as we can, bring value back to the community through, again, normal activations. We've got the lounge already built out. We can bring in play for airdrop partners. And this could be basically the full vision of where Lizard Labs goes, right? That was absolutely one of the possibilities that we considered. However, that doesn't address the core vision that we've always had, which is we believe that we will be the nexus of Web3 gaming. That would not get us there. That would make us a very, very well thought of and high value service provider in the Web3 gaming space. But it doesn't grow Web3 gaming enough, and it doesn't give us that appropriate central positioning in the sector. So we are choosing through these activities to take a bigger risk for growing much quicker, but also make sure that we are addressing the biggest need that exists in the sector today. And by doing so, this will add more value to us as an ecosystem and also to Web3 gaming as a whole. And in addition, we now also get to provide value for decentralized AGI, which anyone that is familiar with the AI space, hell, anyone that's familiar with just technology in general in 2025, if you would prefer to have a centralized AI structure that wins in the future, and you think that's better for humanity than to have a decentralized AI structure that is able to counterbalance that, I would point you to nothing less than social media as it exists today, as a counter argument for why that's better for humanity than otherwise. And so we are very much supportive of decentralization, not just in Web3 and in finance and in gaming, but also in AI tech. And this allows us to also support that very, very worthwhile endeavor as well. So if any of those core items resonate with you for why you want to be here, we are looking for our community to really continue to support and to step up as we go through these next activities. There will be opportunities to weigh in and give us feedback, give us your key considerations and concerns along the way. We certainly have spent more hours than I can count. I've got a lot more gray hairs now than I did, I think, in last fall. But anything that's really worth doing is going to be difficult at times, and so we're here for that. We're here to be disruptors, and we believe that the irreverent lizards are the perfect vehicle to do so. All right.
Yeah, in the
Um,
way of calling out lizards for their support, somebody needs to take that Lizard of the Week role from Elif. somebody else needs to be kicking ass so that we can pass that along. He's been holding on to it somehow. I think he booted limbs. So somebody needs to take this Lizard of the Week from Elon.
We haven't seen Lems in a week or something. LF told us he was on
I don't know.
vacation, but I have some concerns at the moment that he might just be trying to hold the title for himself. I will say, I know that we're getting to the end of the space because all that are coming out now are like fire memes and shit posting against each other in the chat. So we are going to wrap this up pretty soon. I want to give one last call for general questions that anyone has. Again, we're happy to answer questions if they come in the underground lounge. So if you're listening to the recording and you didn't get a chance to ask live, it's totally okay. Put your questions in the chat. We'll make sure that we cover those. If not, I want to just again highlight Scott's point. AGI is either owned by a government, owned by a corporation, or decentralized. You get to pick. And so, where do you want your power being clustered? Is I think a very relevant question for us as humans. Some of you might be Sybil bots, but for the rest of us here, I think it's a very fair question that we have choices, and the way that we choose to focus our time and effort is going to impact those for society as well. LF does not sleep. He's all seeing and replying AI robot. The appropriate question is LF our first AI agents that Lizard Labs spun up? I can neither confirm nor deny whether that is true or not, but you can go back and check his posting history and you be the judge. Yeah. Web3 is neat. So much information. You do not have a smooth brain, but you're struggling to absorb. I totally get that. So again, we are going to be putting a few elements together for you and all the community to make sure that this is clear. So, firstly, this is a chance for me to really get in front of all of you. I know I have not been super present in terms of communicating like what is this. We very intentionally wanted to get the announcement out in December. That let us move forward because we had the MOU that we were able to sign, indicating that we're interested in moving forward across these four entities. And we're now doing the work of putting more details together that are going to be necessary. Part of this is building the clear transparency for what is a publisher, what level of information do we need to communicate to our community and the general public in that front, and what does it mean for you from an actionable standpoint. So those are the works that are in progress today. We will absolutely have full white paper, full deck, full marketing campaign that lays all of this out going forward. It is in the works very, very actively now. We spent a lot of time on this over the holiday shutdown period, making sure that we have the right positioning because as we know, narrative is important to do capital raises, to go back to the marketing, explain here's what we are. This is actually, it becomes a lot easier now moving forward. And while I've given a lot of information, fundamentally, when you get asked, what is Lizard Labs? Now you're going to have an easy answer. Lizard Labs is the next generation of game publisher, specialize in AI and decentralization. That's it. If someone is in the gaming industry, they will understand. We don't now have this very, long-winded answer where we try and talk about all of the services and products that we've been offering, right? We've got an investment arm, we've got, a community arm, we've got gaming products and platform arm, we've got, business to business services. There was a lot that we were doing, but we hadn't been able to get enough that we could combine it into a game publisher framework. So now we have that, and we can very legitimately go to the public and say, we're a game publisher, and people will understand that. Not everyone, again, but if you're in the industry, if you're in VC, you're an angel investor. Hearing someone say we're building an actual legitimate game publisher in focusing on Web3 and AI, it's a very easy narrative. People don't need to understand anything more than that to want to be involved.
Yeah, I'll just mention. I know it is a lot to take in, so I'm going to drop again the link. What the fuck does a publisher do, and who's involved? You can go and check it out. We'll also again have this recording. We do plan to break up some of these things into smaller clips as well, in terms of some of our public communications, as well as other standard marketing practices. So we will be starting to break this stuff down in more bite-sized info. However, that's just some work. And so we wanted to be able to come here today and talk to you all and tell you the bigger vision, and then we'll start working on making it into more bite-sized chunks. That great, thanks, Maddox. He's been a pro at taking these screenshots of me today. we'll have a glorious post of that, I'm sure, at some point. Thanks.
Yes. Very good.
We'll use those. Those are going to be my new professional profile. One of those right there. There you go.
Mhm.
That's
That's right.
definitely going to get us all the fundraising.
Yeah, Scott, thanks for highlighting this too. The next town hall that we will have, we will provide much more detail on publisher operations and activities than we have today. Right, today was our opportunity to really lay out the entire structure, the vision of where we're going, that the why, some of the how, but not in a detailed way, and some of why the hell should you care about it as the lizard community, right? So I hope that we've done that. If we haven't, you guys are responsible because you didn't ask better questions. In all seriousness, keep asking questions if we didn't really outline what you needed to understand. We will take those and we can answer them in the chat. Or those will be a framework for us to build around in the next town hall when we go the next level down in detail. Let's see. The last thing I wanted to highlight was on the personnel side. Lou, I think you probably have this. It might be under the Project Sentience activities.
It
But
is, yeah.
if you have not already looked at the executive team that we have pulled together for this new entity, you are missing out. And I say that having seen, God, 200 pitch decks in Web3 gaming over the past 3 years, probably, maybe more than that at this point. And there is not one that I have seen that has the actual ability that you see today that we've been able to assemble. There is not one. And like I'm not exaggerating. If you don't believe me, go take a look. Then go back and look at some of the pitch decks of whoever you think are the best projects in the space that actually can achieve their vision. So, at the end of the day, it's always about people first, processes and products are second. Because if you have the right people, they will fix bad processes and bad products. Maybe not terrible processes and products, but they can at least fix average ones to make it a really, really good organization. And so that's always been our focus: is get the right people in, give them the right vision and direction, and then let them go to work. So I think that we have that. That said, I'm going to, I think for time's sake, we're just about at the hour and a half mark. We're going to wrap up now. Yeah, if there's any other questions though, drop them in the chat. We'll feel free to type the answers out. And if you are again still with us from the beginning, this has been fantastic. For those that can't see this good-looking audience, we've got almost 80 lizards, and I think we probably had in total about 100 people that have jumped in and out at some point today. So really good attendance. Thank you guys for the engagement, and we look forward to seeing you in the Underground Lizard Lounge as we become the game publisher of the future.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, Maddox, did you want to share something?